In the heart of 2025, the relationship between the United States and European Union stands at a crossroads. With Donald Trump's return to the White House, Europe now faces a new era of confrontation over trade, sanctions, and global influence. From the Paris summit, once a symbol of transatlantic unity, now highlights Europe's urgent push to fill the vacuum left by a retreating America. To the United States' efforts to pressure the old continent through the reimposition of sanctions on Iran, tensions are escalating. As Washington reimposes tariffs and pressures its allies, European leaders scramble to maintain cohesion and defend their interests. Can the old continent withstand this mounting pressure, or will Trump's policies fracture the EU's unity and reshape the global balance of power? Welcome to In Depth. As US-China relations worsen, the European Union faces pressure to choose sides, but is unlikely to comply with US demands. According to the Newsweek, President Donald Trump's tariff strategy initially started at all partners, but focused escalation on China. While pausing most tariffs against the EU, experts note that Europe, highly interdependent with both the United States and China, holds a pivotal position and is leveraging this to protect its interests. The EU is wary of being forced into a polarized stance, especially given the unpredictability of US policy and its own significance as a commercial bloc. While the United States aims to limit Europe's ties with China, the EU is expected to resist, seeking to minimize transatlantic damage and avoid burning bridges with Beijing. French President Emmanuel Macron is set to make his first state visit to the United Kingdom at the end of May, following an invitation from the King and ahead of Donald Trump's expected visit in September. The Independent stated that the visit, coming 8 years after Macron took office, reflects Britain's efforts under Prime Minister Sir Keir Starmer's Labour government to strengthen ties with Europe while also maintaining close US relations. Chancellor Rachel Reeves will soon visit Washington to discuss economic cooperation and concern over US tariffs. Meanwhile, Starmer and Macron has been collaborating on defense, including forming an Anglo-French-led coalition to support any Ukraine peace deal.
Sharp transformations are unfolding in US-EU relations following Donald Trump's return to the White House. The atmosphere is tense, marked by Washington's transactional and unpredictable approach, leaving European leaders scrambling to defend their interests. At the Paris summit, Europe sought to mobilize resources to fill the void left by the United States in security and global affairs. However, unity remains fragile as Trump's administration shifts toward a more confrontational stance. The most visible flashpoint is trade. Trump's March 2025 imposition of 25% tariffs on EU steel and aluminum reignited fears of a trade war. The EU responded by reinstating tariffs on over 4 billion euros of US exports, with further measures on American agriculture and consumer goods set for mid-April. Diplomatic channels are filtered, with Trump showing later interest in engaging European leaders. Commission President Ursula von der Leyen's requests for dialogue have gone unanswered. Meanwhile, US pressure on Europe to reimpose sanctions on Iran has deepened internal EU divisions, complicating efforts to balance economic and security interests between Washington and Tehran. Demands for increased European defense spending raising the specter of a redefined transatlantic partnership. At the same time, China is seizing the opportunity to court Europe through cooperation on climate policy. As the US pivots to confront China, Europe finds itself squeezed between two powers, struggling to preserve unity and global standing. The coming months will test whether the EU can maintain cohesion and strategic autonomy, or whether Trump's policies will fracture the bloc and reshape the global order.
And to explore these complex dynamics, we're joined by two experts who bring deep insights into the evolving US-EU relationship. Hussein Al-Khatib, a professor of political science based in Kentucky, and Nurhain Al-Sheikh, a political science professor from Cairo, will help us understand more about the challenges and opportunities facing Europe amid rising transatlantic tensions. A very warm welcome to both our guests. And we start off with Professor Hussein Al-Khatib. Welcome to the show. And how would you characterize the current state of US-EU relations under President Trump's renewed administration, sir?
Thank you for inviting me, and hello to everyone. It's the transition period, and transition I'm happy with the change. Tells you everything, that the way things were done in the past were favorable to them. They don't spend enough on defense, and they count on the United States to compensate for that. And they treat the U.S. unfairly as to trade. They have trade barriers that the U.S. complained about for decades, not just a Trump issue. And the U.S. leaders over time, they valued the relationship with the Europeans, that it's the closest relationship. So they looked the other way, didn't make it short. But with Trump said America first. So whether it's China, whether it's Germany, whether it's any country, that he will be putting America first, and they want to change things. It's not going to be business as usual. The transition is not going to be, they're not going to be happy time. People are uncomfortable with change to begin with, especially if you have decades of doing things one way, and then the change is very quick. But I think that the relationship is deep, very deep, and the Europeans have no other ally but the US in the world. China is a threat to the global order. Russia is the disruptive power. So by the end of the day, Trump is only going to be in the White House 4 years, and I think that the relationship between the EU and the US will survive Trump.
Mr. Khatib, unity in global, of course, unity is now EU stands at the and I want to know, of course, your opinion on this. Is not working on staying for only 4 years.
No, that's Trump, playing games with his opponents and keeping them unsteady, and having them, distracting them by something hypothetical from something that's going on now. And what's going on now is that he's restructuring the global order. He's trying to focus on China. He's trying to get trade more favorable to the US, and the other things is just to get the commentators and the comedians busy, and he'll be in the limelight, because he knows that there are certain stories that the media can't let go of, such as, I want to be in the White House again, a third term. That's irresistible. So they spend a lot of time on a hypothetical issue. But with the Europeans, you see, the problem with the Europeans is an old one. There is no United States of Europe. They're the economic superpower, but they're not a military superpower. And they're different countries with different priorities, different foreign policies. That's why they haven't been able to pull their weight. And they haven't been able to build military capacity to be able to defend themselves. Russia is in their back, a threat to them, not to the US. The US has no problem with Russia. It's the European countries that have an issue with Russia. Why don't they build capacity to be able to counter Russia? There was at the
Mr.
time
Khatib,
there
I'll
was the
leave you
genocide.
there, and I'll be back again to ask you if Trump is going to win this game or not. Mrs. Sheikh, welcome to the program. And how is the European Union working to maintain unity in the face of mounting US pressure?
Good afternoon, and thank you for having me with you.
Always our pleasure.
Thank you so much. Actually, I think the problem is deeply rooted, not just Trump. Trump not representing himself only. From my point of view, he is not a personal. Trump, a way of thinking in the U.S. By way or another, and it is some kind of a trend of policies that may continue even after Trump. I think.
Can you please elaborate more about a trend of policies? Because I didn't get this. Come again on this, please.
I will give you some example that share in NATO 2% or 2.5 was decided long ago, by the way, before Trump. I think, as far as I know, it was during Bush Jr. And Trump just activated the decision that has been taken before. So he represents a trend in the American policy. And I think that trend will continue by one another. Another example, during the Ukrainian crisis, United States was selling gas to Europe double than comparing with the market price. And as far as I remember, President Macron mentioned that, and he criticized the United States by saying, where is friendship? There is no friendship in that. When you give us the gas with 5 doubles the market price. So I think the United States, by a way or another, wanted to, or feeling that it is now overboarding. It has very critical problems, economic one. Now we are talking about the debt of the United States is more than 36 trillion, which is it's very huge. Important, and have many challenges. China is working hard to overcome the United States. So I think there is some kind of a trend in the United States to release that burden and to by a way or another having launching or initiatives to maximize its benefits from partners before competitors, from my point of view. And I think that even Trump will not continue. Vance would be a very competitor, I think, in the next elections. So we are talking
Why
about...
do you think that Vance will be a competitor in the next elections, Dr. Nourhan?
If Trump will decide not to go to the next election, so I think he will stand behind Vance, and Vance will work and be based on the same category and the same people who are supporting now Trump. So he will get the same popularity of Trump among their people. And I think the mega now, Make America Great Again, some kind popular in the street. Yes, there are now demonstrations, etc. But even the surveys shows Trump maybe suffer from decline of his popularity, but not that much. It is about 2 to 3%. So it means that the same people who are behind him is still behind him, and I think they will also be behind Vance, particularly if they succeeded economic issues and really solve some critical problems and push forward the American economy.
Okay, Professor Al-Khatib, do you agree with Professor Al-Sheikh on, of course, the concept of it being a trend and the idea of that the United States is in debt for $36 trillion? And, of course, what are the key motivations behind Trump's renewed tariff threats against the EU?
I agree with Dr. Norhan. There's the issue of China. There's the issue of the national debt, $36 trillion. And he keeps talking about that. The fact that China is the focus. The other issues are all minor compared to the
So,
ascent
sir,
of China.
I just want to confirm that you agree that China is the focus behind
Definitely,
all that's taking
yes.
place at this point.
Yes, it took a long time for the Europeans to see it that way. They saw China as an economic issue, not as a military and national security issue. Even with Russia, when the Germans became very dependent on energy from Russia, they didn't see that there is something called energy security and that Russia can apply pressure on them through the delivery of the gas and the shutting off the gas. So that's the problem with the Europeans, is that they thought that there's something called international law, that there's something called China becoming richer, will become more of a normal player in international politics, and that did not come out that way. Now, populism is the movement. I mean, he agrees with other politicians in the world who see the world the way Trump sees it. So I don't think that I agree with Dr. Norhan. The natural heir to Trump is J.D. Vance. He's young.
You don't agree in what, sir? Come again, sorry?
That J.D. Vance will be he's the natural successor to Trump as his vice president.
You don't see this?
I see it, yes, that he is the natural nominee to succeed Trump.
Okay, so I got you wrong, sir. You agree, you don't disagree.
Yeah, I agree, yes.
You agree. And about the trend, sir?
Yeah, it's the trend. The people, the idea of the border, the idea of trade, the idea of the Europeans not pulling their weight. These are not Trump inventions, as she said. He didn't invent that. There is a big opinion, big segment of Americans that think that way. And what Trump did is he vocalized it and he made it into a program, he put it on the agenda, and then he made everyone pay attention. Therefore, I don't think it's just going to go away with Trump gone from the scene. I think there is a movement behind it.
Professor Sheikh, what role did the recent Paris summit play in shaping Europe's response to the US?
Europe, I think Europe is passing through critical times in Europe. Now, far right is going in more and more powerful within all countries, even those who are leading the EU, like France, like Germany. So that transitional and the challenging period Europe passing through, I think didn't allow that much varieties and for European countries. Particularly look to Germany. They are suffering, the economy of Germany suffering a lot, as well as many other European countries. So we are talking about hard time politically, hard time economically, and so Europe has limited, from my point of view, and Dr. Hussein may also say whether it is true or not.
Mr. Hussein, you're with us, and you can answer if you want to answer and interact with Professor Sheikh.
Yes, definitely. I mean, the Europeans have transition period, they're going through it, and the U.S. is indispensable to them. They just can't decouple from the U.S. The U.S. is a huge market for them, they're a huge market for the U.S. The relationship is very deep. It's when you want to change things that the side that's comfortable with the way things are, with the status quo, will always complain about the change. And that's what's going on. So it's understandable that the European countries will be complaining because they had it good, and now Trump is changing it. But this
Can I ask
freedom
you,
is
my fellow guests, both a question here? Is Trump succeeding in what he is doing and aiming to do?
As far as I say now, he is not that much successful. I mean, if we are following what he's doing, he retreated a lot about, at least on tariffs. He retreated a lot on his decisions and open negotiation with many countries, as he mentioned. So I think he also faced times, and it is not the way he thought that things were going, not that what he expected. Even in Ukrainian settlement and peace talks, it wasn't that easy. He promised to end the war
In
in
24
24 hours.
hours.
And he couldn't. Up to, we are almost will end the first 100 day and with no settlement. So the same with Iran. So many, Gaza, the same. He couldn't also took such a plan of displacement into being. So I think he's up to the date, he's not that much successful, but he still have 4 years. So we will wait and see what by the end of his term, what he could done.
Professor Khatib, your take, sir?
Yeah, I mean, we look at what he promised, yes, he fell short of it. But at the same time,
He fell short of it.
Yes, but the key issue here is that there is movement. There is movement for change. There is an effort to change things. With Biden, it was like the war in Ukraine is autopilot, and between 10 years, 20 years, now nobody is working to change things. I mean, Trump is at least trying to change reality that it seems that Russians and Ukrainians and Biden was happy with.
Professor Khatib, sorry to interrupt you, on the ground, like Professor Sheikh mentioned, nothing on the ground has changed till today.
No, there is somebody who's trying to change things, not accepting things as is without trying to do anything. I mean, he tried to. He made proposals. He reached out to Putin, reached out to Zelensky, maybe not in the nicest ways, but at least there was some shaking of the status quo that was not good. Somebody is trying to change things. That just continuing on the same path was not going to yield any advantages for either of them. They're both being bled in the war, and he's trying to change things. But you need everybody on the same page to change things. For me, is that he's trying to change things that are not working for anyone. It's not working for the Ukrainians. It's not working.
It's not working for anyone. That's your narrative, sir. So when is it going to work for everyone to settle the global dynamics, sir?
And even with, if you look at Gaza,
Ukraine, sir.
Yeah, no, but Ukraine. No, I would disagree with you. I mean, there's some movement. There's some energy on the Trump side. For example, Iran. 4 years Biden in the White House, what did he do as to Iran? What these negotiations, where did they go? Well, look at the negotiations now. They're moving very fast, one meeting after the other. And Trump means business, and the Iranians mean business as well, too. So there is change. I mean, it's not like you press a button.
But still, sir, in the second round of negotiations, they didn't reach anything.
Yes, but how many days? I mean, 4 years, Biden, nothing happened. Now we have, in a matter of weeks, a lot of meetings. Who thought there's going to be that the Grand Ayatollah in Iran would be receptive to that? Trump would be saying good things. They'll be meeting, one meeting after another, close in time.
Okay, sorry to interrupt you, Mrs. Sheikh, to wrap up this episode because I'm very unfortunate running out of time. What opportunities in 10 seconds does Europe have to increase its economic and strategic independence as soon as possible at this point?
For Europe, I think there is no way up to the date. As I mentioned, I have a challenging problems. I think Europe will continue depending on the United States, and they are now trying to negotiate how to settle that tariff things and also the NATO things and all other issues between the two. And I think no way Europe will still counting on the United States, at least in the near future.
Thank you so much, Professor Ahsan Al-Khatib and Professor Nourhan Al-Sheikh. Of course, thank you very much for your informative, valuable knowledge. Always a pleasure having you with us in our shows, for sharing your, of course, perspectives with us today. Thank you very much for being with us in today's episode of In Depth. This concludes this episode of In Depth. Thank you very much for watching. Until next time, stay tuned for more updates on Q News.